Welcome back to the All Ball Podcast, where it's all ball all the time. You are here with your host, as always, Sean and Isaiah. This is episode number 25, and today we're going to be talking about the Rockets' big win over the Jazz. Even though they didn't have Donovan Mitchell, still a big win. After that, we're going to be talking about the two-man MVP race. After that, Isaiah is going to give his grades on some of the teams I named, just on their overall season so far. And then to end off the episode, we're going to talk about a topic that I had in mind about Russell Westbrook. We'll get a little more into that later. I'll kind of explain that later. But first off, Isaiah, how are you feeling today, man?
Man, I am not good because one thing to know about me, I do not enjoy the cold weather. But I'm surviving because I'm excited that we managed to beat the Jazz. I felt like we had Harden back on the team for a second when I looked at that score. I thought I got put in a time chamber and sent back to 2018. But no, these guys pulled it out. Eric Gordon, Gary Matthews, KPJ, the 2021-2022 squad managed to beat the Jazz while their best player was playing.
Yeah. You kind of threw me off there. Okay, well, let me say first, yes, it is a very cold day. It is Russell Westbrook cold. How cold it is. But yes, you threw me off there when you said the best player because I immediately thought Donovan Mitchell, but we've already had this debate, and you're right. Their best player was playing, which is Rudy Gobert.
Yes.
But this did give me flashbacks also because I bet you whatever this reason was Donovan Mitchell's out, he probably sat out because he didn't want to get clamped up by Eric Gordon like how he did in 2018. He was scared and hid in that locker room the whole time.
You see, he was having flashbacks too.
Yeah. But no, this was a great game, like overall by the whole team. KPJ again was clutch. Mm-hmm. It back-to-back 3-pointers to kind of ice the game. Jalen Green was not good. I guess he was the one blemish in the whole game that you could really point out.
Well, him and KJ Martin, but KJ Martin played less minutes.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of expect more from Green, though.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely was like, nah, what is this, Jalen? You need to do better than this. This is unacceptable.
Gary Bird was in his bag.
The legend, the shooting GOAT, best 3-point shooter of all time. Don't at me.
Just Steph doesn't exist.
No Steph, no Ray Allen, no Clay, Reggie Miller, none of them. It's Gary Matthews.
Not even Gary Bird, Gary Matthews.
Yeah, Gary Matthews. You see, got to put some respect on his name, bro. No, Larry Bird doesn't exist either. It's Gary Matthews.
Who's your GOAT? Gary Matthews.
Of course.
What other takeaways did you have from this game?
Honestly, that my main takeaway was more so KPJ being clutch and Jalen Green concerning me. Though those were my main two takeaways from the game.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Garrison Matthews, jokes aside, he came out and he did what he was doing for us when he first joined the team. So to see him do that again, that was more of a, okay, I'm glad to see that first stint wasn't a fluke and that you can do that again. And then Eric Gordon, he played very well, but obviously he's been one of the main people leading our team, so it wasn't a huge takeaway either. But Kevin Porter Jr. pulling out clutch shots to ice the game, that between this game and the Wizards game, that is a very promising thing to see, because I am now much more trustworthy of him having the ball in his hands later in games when things are tight, especially once we get later down the line to where we're possibly a contending team. So it's good to see that even now he does at least have that in him somewhat to hit those clutch shots when we need them.
Mm.
Yeah, and then just the Jalen Green takeaway is that it's starting to concern me how many very bad games he's having. Like
Yeah.
I thought he was gonna come back from injury and be much improved, and he was for the most part when he first came back, but it seems like he's falling right back into his usual ways, and it's starting to get concerning.
Okay, so let me touch on some of the things you said.
Mm-hmm.
You said about Garrison Matthews being consistent. That's really good because it's not like he's old or anything, and we just signed him to a pretty team-friendly extension.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the only reason I wouldn't see him on the team anymore is if a contending team really needed a shooter and kind of threw us a really good package
Mm-hmm.
to trade for him. The other thing you touched on was KPJ, hitting basically the same shot that he did versus the Wizards.
Mm-hmm.
It was like deja vu. And again, it was like that, oh no, 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 oh yes, yes, yes type of moment. Because when he was like isoing for that shot, what we talked about on that episode replayed in my head again.
Mm-hmm.
Like about how we talked about we'd
It's
rather
like,
have Eric
no,
Gordon.
no, please, no, don't give him the ball and ISO, please.
Yes, exactly. But I guess now he's earned my trust that if he ever has that opportunity again in the next couple, well, I guess the rest of the season,
Mm-hmm.
I trust him.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
For sure, for sure.
but for the Jalen Green thing, I'm still okay with him having these games.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you're not giving up on him yet,
Oh
but
yeah,
like you
no.
said, it is concerning to some point
Mm-hmm.
or to some extent, just because it's happening a little more often than I would like it to.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. Because even last year, when Anthony Edwards was a rookie and he was having the same kind of issue, the difference is he was on much higher volume and was still piling on the points like crazy.
Mhm.
Whereas Jalen Green is dropping single digit points, barely double digit points some nights. That's what makes it even more concerning than the efficiency itself.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's it's a lot of very low lows and a
Mm-hmm.
very few highs to like mid highs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's having these really awful games at least like once a week.
Yeah. And then his good games, when they are in there, they're just good. They're not, there's no real explosive games except for that one game earlier in the season where he hit the 8 threes.
Mm. Yeah, I would like to see his 3-point shot improve, but
Mm-hmm.
I still feel like he's chunking up a lot of contested or not good looks from beyond the arc.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also concerning to me because I know he's only 19 years old still,
Mm-hmm.
but his shot IQ is pretty bad.
Yeah, he's taken too many of those high school shots, I should say,
Mhm.
where it's like, oh, I'm way better than all these dudes I'm playing against. I can shoot this.
Mhm.
But now you're in the NBA and you are in the lower rung of the league, to say the least. So you can't afford to just shoot these shots like that.
Yeah, and it leads to a lot of transition defense for the other team too, and we're not that great of a transition defensive team.
Oh, you mean transition offense for that team? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm saying like when we miss a shot, we don't play good transition
No,
defense.
no, I'm saying because you said transition defense for the other team. It's transition
Oh yeah,
offense.
yeah, yeah. Transition
Yeah.
offense. Yeah, my bad, my bad, my bad. Um, yeah, we struggle in that department pretty
Mm-hmm.
bad. Um, but other than that, I couldn't really find too many other takeaways other than I think most of the team has matured pretty well
Mm-hmm.
throughout the season, especially KPJ. I know a lot of people have said to give up on him being a point guard. I don't think so just yet because he's still really young. I
Mm-hmm.
think he still has a lot of room to grow into that point guard position, but I guess we just have to see the rest of the season.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, we shouldn't be giving up on him as a point guard this early. One, because he's young, and two, because it's not like we're trying to force him into something that he can't do. He can do this. He's shown the potential. He's lived up to the potential in some games, so it's there. It's just like with his scoring, we just need to make it consistent now.
Right. What was I about to say? I was about to say something and then it slipped my mind. So I guess let's just go ahead and move on. If I come back to it, I'll bring it up. But
Okay.
was there anything else you want to talk about this specific game between the Rockets and Jazz?
No, that's it.
Okay. Well, then let's go ahead and move on to the next topic, which is the MVP race, which is basically down now to Jokic and Giannis. I know you're going to give it to Giannis because I was about to ask you if you had to give it to someone, who are you giving to? I think it's pretty clear that both of us would give it to Giannis.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, other than team record, is setting apart Giannis and Jokic?
You see, and that's the funny thing about it, because that's honestly the only factor. In terms of the stats, both of them are killing it in the stats. So really, team record is all you have to go off of there.
Mm.
Actually, now that I think about it, no. Giannis also gets an edge considering that he's first in defensive player of the year race too. So that would be the real personal edge that I would give, excusing team record, because of the
Yeah,
fact that Giannis is dominating on both ends of the court and not just on offense.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say too. Is I think Giannis's defense is probably what not only puts him over, but kind of like separates him.
Mm-hmm.
Because Jokic is no slouch on defense or anything like that,
Yeah, but
but
he's definitely
he's
not
definitely not
somebody you want
Giannis.
to rely on either. It's
Yeah.
like you don't want him to be that last hope on defense. It's like, no, you kind of want to get him out the way and have somebody else try and play cleanup for him. Whereas Giannis specializes in cleaning up for other people's mistakes.
So now I'm guessing that you're saying this is a two-man race now because of the voting, or
because of the voting and just the circumstances in general. If you really look at it, Kevin Durant's been out, so that drops him in the rankings. Steph has obviously been terrible, so he's really not even in the top 4 anymore. And I believe it was LeBron that they moved up into that top 4 where Steph was, but I mean his team's the 8th seed right now, so he's not.
They don't have Ja.
I don't think Ja is there. I could check really quick
Because I definitely think Ja Morant should be over LeBron.
Actually, no, that's who it was. Joel Embiid is the person who took Steph's spot.
What do you think, Ja or Joel?
Well, before I answer that, let me point out that they have Ja all the way at 8th in the ranking.
What?
Yes, which is still below Steph. Just want to note that out. And they actually have Chris Paul rounding out the top 5.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a very interesting voting.
All right, that's doesn't make any sense to me, but okay.
Yeah, but now to answer your Joel versus Ja question, it's a really hard decision to make because, two very different positions. But if I were to really come down to it and ponder upon it based on just my limited basketball knowledge, I would probably give the edge to Embiid, considering that these rankings are weekly and so they constantly update. I'm
Yeah.
gonna give it to Embiid based on the fact that he just closed out this week's weekly ranking with a
Mhm.
50-point game in 27 minutes. So I think that gives him the edge in that spot. But yeah, Ja definitely should be higher in this ranking. It's honestly kind of embarrassing that they have him all the way at 8th, and it's borderline disrespectful.
I think it's very disrespectful. His team right now is
Third?
third in the West.
Yeah.
A team that was not expected to probably even be above 6.
Mm-hmm.
They're 8-2 in their last 10, and they're what? That's almost 15. It's 15 games over 500.
Mm-hmm.
That's He's been playing so well this season. I know Desmond Bane has also helped out this team a lot,
Mm-hmm.
but he's not only made us like, how do I put this? He's not only made a drastic improvement from last year,
Mm-hmm.
but he's also made like a team impact too, to where his
Mm-hmm.
team is now third in the West
Yeah.
above a Jazz team that's like came into the season as a true title contender, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even though personally I've never believed in the Jazz, even when they were the first seed last year. So something about the way they played does not translate well to the postseason. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people blame it on Rudy Gobert, but the issue is bigger than him. It's not a singular player killing the team. But that aside, because it's not relevant to the topic right now. But yeah, I think Ja has definitely proven, just first of all, on his rookie year, the fact that he came in a team that people thought was going to be scraping the bottom of the league, getting lottery picks left and right, has now jumped up to a playoff contender just as soon as he gets drafted. Then, after that, they actually make the playoffs the next year. And then, if that wasn't enough, now he has them at the 3rd seed. And so, like you said, he's made a drastic personal improvement, efficiency, scoring totals. He's picked up his defense a little bit, still could use some work there. But also, again, like you said, leadership is one of the main things from him that has been consistently improving. And it shows with each season how this team just keeps getting better and better as he gets better.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be surprised if this Grizzlies team buys in at the deadline.
Mm-hmm.
Like at this point, why not? You've shown to beat, um, I believe it was the Warriors twice already this season.
I don't know if they beat him twice. I know for sure they did beat him once. I don't know if it was twice.
I I think this Grizzlies team will buy in. I don't know who they'll get at the deadline.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how big of a splash they'll make, like who they'll actually go out and get. I've heard rumors of trying to get Bradley Beal. I don't think that's
No.
possible.
Oh no. It's first, it's not possible, and two, that would be too drastic of a change for this team to make
Mhm.
mid-season when they're already on a roll.
I don't know who they can go after as more of a big name type of person.
Yeah, that's my thing about it, is I'm not even sure if they necessarily have the pieces to go after a big name.
Hmm.
More so because clearly this team is young. They want to stay younger. So all that they really have in valuable assets is young players. And to throw that away, all of that chemistry that they've established over the season,
Hmm.
just to bring in some big name that possibly won't work, that possibly could be a 1 or 2 season rental. It's too many variables. I don't think they necessarily should go for something like that.
Yeah, I kind of have a hard time seeing it too, but I
Mm-hmm.
do think they'll make a move that's more on the how could I put this, flashier side, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be like a role player type of move. I think it'll be that maybe
Yeah.
that fourth, fifth type guy.
Yeah. Like somebody who's clearly good, but not an all-star kind of player.
Yes. Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about MVP race? I know we kind of went off of Giannis and
Yeah.
Jokic.
I mean, because we kind of rounded that one out nice and simple. We think it deserves to go to Giannis because of his defense, even though the actual official ranking has Jokic over Giannis, but
Mhm.
that's a whole nother issue. We can't really control that. But hey, he's like we said, our decision is clear here. So there wasn't much to say about that.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and move on to the next topic then.
Mm-hmm.
So I have 6 teams here, and you can add on more if you want.
Okay.
So I want you to go ahead and give a grade, like A minus, B plus, or whatever, and then give
Mm-hmm.
a little bit about them.
Okay.
So let's start off with our hometown team, the Rockets.
I'm going to give us I'm going to say we're a C plus.
Hmm.
Now, honestly, we should be an F based on our ranking in the standings, but I've seen a lot of positives from this team. One, in the way that Eric Gordon is still contributing for us, even though he honestly shouldn't be wasting his time here.
Hmm.
In the way that Kevin Porter Jr. is showing some flashes of development and true potential. The way that just a lot of our young guys in general are clearly showing some more development and maturity. And then just in the overall potential that this team has for the future. And they're displaying that very often.
Okay, I gave him a C minus
Okay.
just because I I have a problem still
Mm-hmm.
with. Well, it was more actually at the beginning of the season when we were playing house a lot. We were playing Nwaba a lot.
Mm-hmm.
We were kind of putting wins over development
All
a
right.
little too much.
And we
And
weren't
now,
winning.
yeah, we weren't winning. We were 15 game losing streaks. And now that we've kind of transitioned away from that, we got rid of House. Nwaba doesn't really play as much anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. One of the other problems I had, though, was Silas's inability to make adjustments mid game up until
Mm-hmm.
about uh maybe when we started that 7 game winning streak. That's about when he started making those changes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So those are some of the things. John Wall's situation, I don't think there's many ways to deal with it, but
Oh,
I would like to see something done.
there's no ways to deal with that.
We could play him, but that wouldn't make sense at all.
Yeah,
Buy
that's
him out. That's terrible
yeah.
option. Uh, yeah, we're we have problems. We fix some of them, but we still have more to fix.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the next team is the Lakers.
Ooh. Okay. I think for the Lakers, and I don't want anybody to take this as comparing each letter grade to the other teams that I give. This is based on the specific team's situation and expectation. So,
Mhm.
with that being said, I give the Lakers a big fat D minus.
Okay.
And that is because this team has consistently disappointed. A lot of people have underperformed. And honestly, the only reason that it's not a pure F is one, Carmelo Anthony is thriving in his minimal role, and LeBron is still doing LeBron things.
Mm.
Other than that, this team has been an utter complete mess. And honestly, I don't know why they even bothered trying to pull off this whole Westbrook LeBron thing in the first place. Not to mention, AD's been out. And even when he was playing, he was clearly worse than he was in their actual championship run and even last season.
Yeah, so I gave them a D.
Mm-hmm.
They better have all the money in the world to pay for LeBron's back surgery because they're going to give him scoliosis the way he's trying to carry this team right now. You know how I feel about LeBron, but I feel bad for this man.
Exactly. I feel the same way, and I feel bad.
This man is putting blood, sweat, tears into every night just for TH3 to drop 3 points in 20 something minutes, or have Westbrook go 2 for 15.
Oh man.
Oh man, it's hard to watch even for a player that I don't really like that much.
Yeah, man. It's like I can only dislike a player so much before their circumstances outweigh the dislike that I have for them. Because there is no reason that a 37-year-old man should have to drop 30 points to keep his team in a game and still lose. That's just not fair. It's not fair.
You know how all the LeBron memes used to be like, oh, when he looks at his team on the bench and it's like when he's thinking about trading the whole team away,
it's
and
like,
now
this is getting traded.
Yeah, now it's just Westbrook he's looking at.
Oh man, that reminds me. Did you see that clip where LeBron was on the bench looking at the stat sheet, and then Westbrook is kind of trying to talk to him? He's just looking at the stat.
Oh yeah. He's trying to cover up his own stats. Hopefully LeBron will see he's like 2 for 27.
He's like, hey bro, what you looking? What you looking
Oh man. And Westbrook fans are so delusional. Oh,
yeah.
I saw on Twitter after he posterized who did he Gobert? Yeah. They're like, see, Westbrook still has he's still good.
Fuck.
Like one poster doesn't fix your skyscraper of bricks that you put up every night.
Exactly. And that is the problem with modern NBA media, because too many fans and actual professional media personnel alike take highlights as true definitive definitions of how a player is playing, when in fact it's a highlight for a reason. It does not tell a full story. And honestly, I think that highlight does tell a big story, because just like when Blake Griffin dunked on Giannis, Westbrook had to throw the defender out of the way to get that dunk. He completely stiff-armed Rudy Gobert's arm out the way to get that dunk.
Sign that man to the Los Angeles Chargers.
You see, and those are the kind of dunks that I don't like, because it's clearly an offensive foul, but they just don't call it for the sake of, excitement factor.
Okay, so speaking of Gobert, the next team that I was going to talk about, or I was going to ask you about, was the Jazz.
Okay. The Jazz, I think I'll give them a B, because they started off very well, and then now as the season's progressed, they've had ups and downs. Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert have both been out of the lineup at times, so they've slipped more considerably than I thought they would. But overall, they're still a very good team. It's just compared to where they started the season versus where they are now, they've taken a noticeable decline.
I have them at a B plus.
Okay.
Just because even though Donovan Mitchell has still had those very inconsistent moments throughout the season,
Mm-hmm.
and like you said, they've been in and out of the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
They're still managing to be at the 4 spot right now,
Mm-hmm.
even though teams are not really performing up to what they actually should be. That's probably the only reason that I have them at a B plus. If not, I'd probably have them at a B minus.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so next team is the Hawks.
Ooh, yeah. The Hawks, I'm giving them a straight F. The Hawks
Mm-hmm.
have been absolutely disappointing. They went from Eastern Conference Finals appearance and a pretty good series at that. Like they
Mm-hmm.
definitely gave the Bucks a solid scare in a couple of games there. So to go from that to now they're struggling to even get near the play in, which they still are not. So man, this team is really just underperforming, and honestly, you have to put some of that, if not most of that, on Trae Young, despite the fact that he's averaging some of his better numbers so far.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of it, even though because you know how Clint Capella was one of my favorite players when he was on the Rockets,
Mm-hmm.
a good portion of the season's failure has been on Clint just because of
Mm-hmm.
how bad his defense was.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that kind of brings the idea of maybe they should add more defenders around.
Mm-hmm.
They can't really rely on Clint to defend anymore because if they're going to let him get to the paint and he can't even defend, well, the only solution is to not let them get to the paint
Mm-hmm.
because Trae Young isn't guarding anything.
Oh yeah.
If
And that's why I say that some of it is on Trae Young, because
yeah,
the fact that your best player can't play defense, that's killer.
yeah. So I have him at a wait. I said a. I did I give him a grade, or did I just kind of go into my explanation?
No, you just went into it.
Okay, I have him at a D minus.
Okay.
I didn't want to give him a full F just because of how well Trae Young has played at sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
but you're basically right there.
Mm. Yeah, now I had to give them a full on F because, again, they were just in the Eastern Conference Finals. So at that point, I was expecting these guys to come in, be a top 5 seed,
Hmm.
and then, or at the very least sixth. But to be out of the play in, sitting all the way at 12th, that's completely unacceptable. As disappointing as the Lakers have been, at least they're still in the play in.
That's true. That's very true. Okay, so the next team that I have, second to last team that I have is the Cavaliers.
The Cavs, I'm gonna give them an A minus. Actually,
Hmm.
no, I'll go up. I'll give them the flat A because now that I think about it, this team has had a lot of guys that were contributing great numbers and just great team play go out with injury. Colin Sexton and Ricky Rubio, most notably, losing both of them to major injuries at that. Yet these guys are still a 6 seed. They're still firmly within that playoff slash play in range.
Hmm.
So for them to manage to maintain this role that they've been on as a team despite hardship and honestly a lackluster roster, I have to hats off to their coaching staff and their actual personnel that is out there on the court doing their thing. Most notably, as we've talked about last week, Darius Garland and Jared Allen taking huge steps as a duo and just as individual players.
Yeah, you basically said everything I was about to say. They're making JB Bickerstaff looking like he's Pop. Garland and Jared Allen are basically all-star slash borderline all-star players right now. And like
Mhm,
how you mentioned, Rubio and Sexton right before they got injured were playing very high levels.
mhm.
Uh, Isaac Okoro, I think, has shown some pretty good growth. Kevin Love, I think, has played his role about as good as you can play it for coming off the bench.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
And Larry Markkinen playing small forward has somehow worked.
That's probably the biggest question mark as how the heck did this work?
Yeah,
Because this man barely worked as a power forward on the Bulls, then to come in and play small forward and actually contribute to positive winning. I don't know why I said positive winning. Contribute positively to winning. I mean, that's just unbelievable.
yeah, and not to mention they probably have the rookie of the year on their team. So I have to give them the A plus.
Okay, okay,
So
that's fair.
final team is the Wizards.
I'm going to give the Wizards. I'm going to give them a flat C
Mm,
because, in all honesty, I did not have expectations for the Wizards. They definitely shocked me earlier in the season, being a top seed, but now they've come down to earth. They're down at eighth, about where I was gonna imagine them if I were to rank the teams at the start of the season.
mhm.
So, yeah, I got to give them a C for quite literally being right at the level of expectation that I had for them.
Yeah, I got to give them a C too. They started off really hot, but they fell back down to right where they should be, like you said.
Hmm.
Beal has been very. Would you call it inconsistent too?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, Kuzma, I think, has been probably one of the brighter spots of his team.
Yeah, he's definitely been well improved from the Lakers. He's still not necessarily a consistently good player, but
Mm-hmm.
he's taken huge strides in that direction.
Mm-hmm. The one thing I am scared for this team is they're about to go into a Pacers mode. They are about to go into a mode where they're not sure if they're rebuilding or they're not sure if they're actually trying to contend. They
Hmm.
definitely shouldn't be contending,
Oh yeah, just like how the
but
Pacers gave up on that.
yeah, they have Bradley Beal, so they can't really fully tank unless they get rid of Bradley Beal.
Yeah, so they're quite literally going to be stuck in Pacers mode where they're not good enough to contend, but they're not bad enough to tank. So they
Mm-hmm.
can't really fully rebuild and tank unless they get rid of those big name guys, in which case for the Wizards it's just Bradley Beal. But yeah, they I feel like at some point soon they need to realize that this is just not gonna work.
Yeah. Okay, so was there any other teams that you wanted to talk about?
Yes, actually.
Okay.
One, I wanted you to give a ranking on the Raptors.
Okay. The Raptors, I'm gonna give them a C minus because I felt like they should have been better than they actually are. Freddie's been playing really well this season.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Boucher has not. OG's been. I feel like he should have been playing better this year. I think everyone expected him to take even a bigger step than what he has.
Mm-hmm.
What other things could I say about them?
They also.
Pascal,
Oh, okay.
uh,
You can go.
Pascal. I don't. He's been, I guess, good
Yeah,
at least to me.
I know what you're trying to say. He's pretty much not taking that leap that everybody expected him to take after Kawhi left. So he's just
Yeah.
been still playing at that level that he was playing at when Kawhi was here, but now he's supposed to be the best player on the team and he's
Hmm.
only playing at that level. So it's like you should be doing a lot more and you're just not.
Yeah, so I have to give him a C minus. The only thing that's really keeping him afloat for me is Freddie's play.
Mm-hmm. Okay, you see, I was going to give them a C plus because of everything you said, and then also they do have the other potential rookie of the year on their team, and Scotty Barnes.
Forgot about Scotty Barnes.
But yeah,
Yeah.
other than that, you pretty much said it all.
Was
And,
there another team that?
yes, and then
Okay.
the next team that I was going to ask you to grade was the Timberwolves.
Ooh. Okay. Timberwolves. I'm gonna give them a B minus.
Okay.
I would like to give them a B plus, but okay. So the Timberwolves for me have always been a team that I feel like should have been doing better, but they've always been kind of injury plagued for the last like
Mm-hmm.
2 years. I think we've talked about that before.
Mm-hmm.
They should have been doing better. Now that they're not as injury plagued, I think they're maybe like one. Actually, no. I think they're exactly where I think they should be.
Mm-hmm.
Seven-ish seed. So they're basically living up to expectation. Cat's playing extremely well. Anthony Edwards playing pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
I got to give them a B minus. I think that's a good spot for them.
Yeah, I was definitely gonna give them a B.
Mm-hmm.
Just, same things. They're finally living up to that expectation that we had for them in previous years, where they should have been in the playoff race, but they just weren't because of injury issues. And now that they've mostly gotten that under control, I don't know what changed in their medical and training staff, but something did. And so now they're in a much better place as a team. They've also had good development from guys like Jared Vanderbilt and Anthony Edwards, like you mentioned. I think Jaden McDaniels as well has been improved. And
Mm-hmm.
then all around, even D'Angelo Russell is having a better season for them this year than he did last year, somewhat.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, yeah, I think they're sitting in a good spot and
Yeah, I think
about that range where I expected them to sit.
I think anywhere in the B range is good for them.
Yeah.
Okay. Another team or
No, that's it.
all right. So let's go ahead and finish off the podcast with this theory, I guess you could say. Not really a theory, but just something I noticed. Well, I didn't notice it, but I read it and then I noticed it. Okay. The last Rockets, Lakers, Wizards. Okay. Last three teams Westbrook has played on,
Mm-hmm.
the head coach has gotten fired,
Okay.
left, or is about to or on the hot seat. Scott
Okay.
Brooks, Mike D'Antoni, and Frank Vogel. Is it a coincidence that whatever team Russell Westbrook goes to he's gonna like just gonna walk in and light the place on fire? Like he's messing everything up.
I don't think it's a coincidence. Actually, I think it is a very clear indicator of where Westbrook is in his career because
Mm,
he's still out there doing his triple double chasing thing, where he's piling on those stats. And a lot of people love to bring up the whole, oh, but he has like a 75% win percentage when he gets a triple double. People need to learn the difference between correlation and causation. They're not the same thing. I can promise you that there are plenty of games where he probably missed the triple double by one assist or one rebound or whatever, and they
mm,
won. And that doesn't make the triple double win percentage any less valid or any more valid. It just goes to show that the triple double is not the end all be all of what leads to team victories. We don't know what teams he's winning against with these triple doubles and such. There's a lot of factors there. But at the
mm-hmm.
end of the day, it's clear that his style of play is just far too inefficient for any team that wants to have a level of true success. And that's been the problem with each of these teams he's gone to. He went to the Rockets. We're trying to contend with him. But just the way he plays and the fact that he got injured, really, it just derailed our whole hopes. Then
it's still my bad to cut you off, but it's still so funny to me. Like D'Antonio was like, "Nah, I've had enough of this. I'm good. I'm out. I don't want to sign here."
Oh man, but he moves to the Wizards, and the Wizards were thinking, "Oh yeah, Westbrook and Bradley Beal are finna be the next John Wall Bradley Beal duo and about to get us back into those high playoff seats." No, they barely made it as an 8th seed, I believe. Yes, they were the 8th seed. And what did it get them? A first round exit. And now he's on the Lakers, and they're at the 8th seed again. And they're likely going to be another first round exit, assuming that the standings stay somewhere around what they are right now. So I think that it's clear that from the time that Kevin Durant left the Thunder all the way up until now, Westbrook has been a first round exit with the exception of his one season here in Houston, in which case he was a second round exit, which was actually the first round that he played in. So I don't know, man. I feel like if that doesn't tell the story of how Westbrook is just, he's trying to do more than he's capable of at this point. And he's manipulating people into believing he's still at that level because the numbers say so.
Yeah, poor Mike D'Antoni, poor Scott Brooks, and then most likely poor Frank Vogel. Put it on the headlines: Russell Westbrook head coach killer. He is ruining these people's jobs because Frank Vogel, I think he's on the hot seat. I've read it.
Yeah.
I think he should be on the hot seat. Like for his own reasons, for putting the lineups that he puts out there sometimes, but some of it also isn't his fault because Westbrook's doing what he does.
Exactly.
And AD's still not wanting to play center. Yeah, but it was just something that I read and I thought about it and it made a lot of sense to me. And I wanted to see what you thought about it.
Yes, I absolutely agree that Westbrook is a problem for head coaches. I'm pretty sure that if Frank Vogel got fired and they just decided to hire LeBron as a player coach, even LeBron would be in the hot seat at that point.
He'll start looking at himself like, "Hey, bro, you about to get traded?" Oh, man. Okay, was there anything else you wanted to talk about before I guess we wrap everything up?
No, that's it.
All right, well, that's going to be the end of the episode. If you like the episode, go ahead and like and subscribe. Drop a comment down below what you want to hear us talk about. Isaiah, any last comments?
Don't forget, share the podcast as many people as you can. It helps us out tremendously. It helps us grow, helps us provide you a better podcast to enjoy as you're doing any sort of leisurely activities or driving, whatever you do when you listen to the podcast. Just allow us to help you enjoy a better product. And lastly, as usual, check out the podcast Instagram at All Ball Podcast YT, where you'll be informed of when episodes drop, and you'll be informed of any other major happenings with the podcast.
All right. Well, other than that, catch you on the next episode.